Good afternoon, class. This is my summary on book chapter review for chapter 9. So being able to talk freely amongst your peers allows them to converse openly with you. This conversation elicits responses that are apropos with the intention. Teaching, however, has always leaned towards the directive. Do as I say, watch this video, and then we test. In chapter 9 of the text, Clark and Mayer argue that education, at least e-learning, should have the appropriate amount of conversational language in the text. What they call the personalization principle and the use of on-screen agents, avatars, characters, even real persons, combine together to create a friendlier, readily absorbed set of lessons. Studies performed and cited in the text show that students tend to learn much better when the wording is changed, even slightly, to represent a more relaxed tone, and that it elicits better retention of information. A majority of the students reflect, however, that those who are already learned in the subject mark little to no change, or even better attention with the more formal lessons. Other studies cited refer to the agent used in the lessons, the language accent, the gender of the voice, even the mechanisms. Where generally the more masculine or logic-style lessons should learn better from a male voice, studies have found instead that most learn better from a female voice. In fact, most of the lesson studies seem to learn better from a female voice in the accent of the learner's language, not mechanical in sound, meaning the computer didn't generate the voice, and with a moving avatar. Clark and Mayer go even further. They point out that not only is all the above information important, but the personalization of the author, the teacher or lesson creator, whereas the facilitator places themselves in the lessons as part of the data or providing her opinion, creates better motivation in students that then equates to better retention. The more someone pays attention, the more they will retain. The authors conclude the chapter by surmising that there is much still left to be learned and studied about this subject. But the studies performed to date corroborate the inclination towards personalization of the lessons. So my reflection, coming from a background with formalized teaching in the military, at first this chapter sounded about as interesting as Chinese food on an upset stomach. After diving into the text, I realized this style of writing is exactly the kind I prefer, and normally the form I write in. In fact, I generally have to come back to papers that are supposed to have the formal tone just to take out the personalizations. I found the studies referenced are nearly mirror image of my personal feelings towards lessons we are required to take online for the military. The lessons that do not have an actual visual agent make it difficult for me to follow. Those that are mechanical in sound, I normally ignore the sound altogether and have to suffer through reading the formalized text. The use for all formats of digital learning when the audience is unaccustomed to the subject should make it easier and more interesting to follow. The implications it has for future lessons and the potential to modify face-to-face learning, especially K through 12, is tremendous. In creating professional development lessons, such as the instructional system design in my collaboration group, the idea will create an atmosphere of familiarity, whereas the staff and faculty receiving the lessons should feel more comfortable in learning. As long as the instructor or facilitator uses the tools to make himself visible, then the audience will be able to identify with the lessons and interact with the entire group. That the lessons will be asynchronous and synchronous should not deter from using the ideas from this chapter. I find that my previous ideas of learning via digital methods, such as Blackboard, have changed a bit since reading this lesson. I know that learning with children is better when the teacher can let them relate, can create a humorous or engaging environment, and that those who are teaching in a more supervisory or formal role tend to lose most of the children along the way. I also know that so many times we think of children being different than adults, that the two groups learn different. Instead, I counter that both groups learn exactly the same. Simply the amount of information or depth of the lesson should be modified, specific, not necessarily to the age, but to the maturity level of the learners. As I transition through this degree plan and move towards seeking my placement as an online educator, I know that the principle in this chapter will greatly enhance my teaching methods. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed my take on the chapter.